RFK confirmed, Tulsi confirmed, and sworn in RFK Jr. on the path to confirmation, with only Mitch McConnell voting against him.
He noted that he's a childhood survivor of polio, and he talked about how vaccines have saved millions of lives around the world. He said that he will not condone the relitigation of proven cures, and neither will millions of Americans. He goes on to say that referring to Robert F. Kennedy Jr., a record of trafficking in dangerous conspiracy theories and eroding trust in public health institutions does not entitle Mr. Kennedy to lead these important efforts, referring to efforts to try to treat illnesses and disease. He goes on to talk about the efforts to try to deliver on vaccines. He says Mr. Kennedy failed to prove he's the best possible person to lead America's largest health agency.
Kash Patel looks like he'll be confirmed. He's advanced out of committee. For each of them, there are risks to the country. But I think for Gabbard, and especially RFK, there are risks to the senators who voted for them. Kash is a little bit of a different case. His primary motivation is, well, I'll read from the New York Times. Republican lawmakers have embraced the choice of Mr. Patel, arguing that the FBI treated conservatives unfairly during the Biden administration. All right, well, now it's not the Biden administration. Yes, I know. Government gangsters, that's the name of Patel's book, and the deep state, et cetera, et cetera. But FBI agents, they're not leftists. They're not inherently anti-conservative. They are what you would call, or what you would have called a couple years ago, conservative. So after 2 weeks where the new sheriff asserts himself and the deputies all get the message, okay, we're no longer encouraged to prosecute Donald Trump. What's the next order of business? Do you stop prosecuting the drug dealers, the child molesters, the lone wolf ISIS acolytes? You're still going to prosecute them, right? Does Kash Patel have ideas about prosecuting them? Will the top deputies just do the prosecution after Kash made his point that we'll no longer be prosecuting the president? Unclear. And during his hearings, uncared about. But still, Republicans can console themselves that the FBI will essentially continue apace. Now, Tulsi Gabbard, head of intelligence, director of national intelligence, a little bit of a different story. She seems Assad curious, or was, once there was an Assad in Syria. She seems Putin receptive, but guess what? So's the guy who's giving the party its marching orders. There are a couple of Republicans who are genuinely anti-Russian in their bones, and they're really worried about Putin. But I guess they think that Tulsi won't really cook the books to carry a borscht flavor. Maybe they think she'll be more or less sensible. Maybe they say to themselves, you know, there was a branding opportunity in the last few years as an America First anti-imperialist. She took it. So they count her as an opportunist, not an ideologue, not a member of the fifth column. And they figure the cost of crossing Trump are more than the benefits of voting against Gabbard. And you know, this is maybe how their thinking goes, Gabbard was an officer in the Army. She handled sensitive material capably. She was a Democratic congresswoman. She served on the Armed Services Committee. And then in her last term on the Intel Subcommittee, she had all the clearances then. She was given highly sensitive material when she was a Democrat. Then we trusted her. Now, the Republicans may think, why not extend that attitude now that she's one of us? And even if not, this is again how their thinking may go. The CIA, the intel services, they're going to find a way to get the right info to the right people. They are professionals. They're secretive professionals, in fact. They can sneak the right info out. They can squirrel it away. They can spirit it away. All the S words. But that's their job. They could do it. What I'm saying is, on this one, on Gabbard, some of the Republicans who might have had misgivings actually are trusting the deep state. They think the intelligence community will find a way. And then with Patel, they think the domestic intelligence community will fall in line. He will be a bulwark against the deep state. Anyway, I'm not a Republican senator. I do not have to work overtime to explain their reasoning or motivation. What it basically comes down to is Trump's the president. All power flows through Trump. Let's give him what he wants. But then I start thinking about RFK Jr. It's fun to think about. Senator Bill Cassidy, Dr. Bill Cassidy from Louisiana, Republican, seemed to raise a lot of legitimate questions during the RFK Jr. confirmation hearing.
You had once described yourself as pro-vaccine to me. Now, the context of what I'm about to ask is that there's multiple studies establishing the safety of measles and hepatitis B vaccine, and specifically that they are not a cause of autism. In this position, and you have previously said yes, but if you are approved to this decision, to this position, will you say unequivocally, will you reassure mothers unequivocally and without qualification that the measles and hepatitis B vaccines do not cause autism?
Senator, I am not going into the agency with any.
Well, that's kind of a yes or no question.
And then Bill Cassidy voted for RFK. The Wall Street Journal opposed RFK's nomination also for lots of good reasons. RFK has the potential to make a lot of money from his official position as director of HHS. He promised to give the money to his son. So that's not corrupt. Tulsi said she would transfer her holdings to her husband. So again, nothing to worry about there. I know someone right now is screaming, Joe Biden, he might not have, quote, benefited from Ukrainian corruption, but his son did. So I get it. The turnabout is fair play logic. But on RFK, the Republicans also have made turnabouts on abortion, turnabouts on their long-standing support for agribusiness. RFK's organizations, Riverkeepers and his other nonprofit, quote unquote, organizations have sued many, many companies that have given many, many contributions to Republicans. But alone among these three nominees, I just do not see how Republicans do not see how this can go very, very wrong. Not for someone else, not for others, not even just for Trump, for them, because they voted for RFK. Name one reason not to vote for RFK. I could name more than one. I could name H5N1, avian flu, now in humans. Latest update, 69 human cases reported in 12 states. But officials say public health risk is still low. And how are they going to cure it? Well, apparently cutting out seed oil does the job. The real answer is vaccines. Vaccines help. There are vaccines against the avian flu. They have to get better. They have to address all the mutations. Who makes these vaccines? In the case of avian flu, it's GlaxoSmithKline in collaboration with CureVac, but also Moderna, Pfizer. Those are the big ones. They're working on an mRNA cure, by the way. Wow. Having RFK oversee the process where Moderna and Pfizer works on an mRNA cure. It's a little like hiring Kanye West to be a docent in the Holocaust Museum. Maybe to stick in the cabinet, it's like putting Pete Hegseth in charge of battleship christening, sparkling wine procurement. This can't go well. Beyond RFK's ignorance about Medicaid and Medicare, during his confirmation hearings, he said Medicaid was fully funded by the federal government and that Medicare is a fee-for-service program. But okay, he could learn on those things. On vaccines, though, he already has learned, and they're almost all the wrong lessons. The director of HHS has to have a very well thought out vaccine policy. The questions are how to develop them, how to procure them, how to distribute them. Their stance, the HHS secretary's stance on vaccines, it's a little like the Secretary of Defense's stance on weaponry. Which ones? How much? The best values, the worst risks. RFK Jr.'s stance on vaccines is anti. Don't believe him when he says, well, I'm pro-vaccine, but it's like the Bar and the Blues Brothers when it said, we play both kinds of music, country and Western. I'm sure there are two vaccines that RFK would give his kids, just not, and he says he has, he just hasn't given them or recommended that other people who need vaccines give them to their children so their children won't die. It's like the Amish guy who says, oh yeah, I'm into the latest technology, zippers, butter churns, all the cutting edge stuff. RFK at every turn discourages vaccine uptake. And there's not an anti-vaccine movement or moment that he doesn't affiliate himself with. I am not aware that he has ever criticized anyone who is anti-vaccine. Having him be the primary liaison between Moderna and Pfizer is crazy. Now, you might not know this. Moderna and Pfizer were pretty important in the fight against COVID-19. How important? Well, in 2021, their vaccines saved 14 million lives worldwide. That's the low figure. The high puts it in above 20 million. Of course, a lot of those figures come from the World Health Organization, which we've withdrawn from. So that's a great thing. Maybe the Republicans will say RFK raises some great points about processed food. Or maybe they look at the Make America Healthy Again voter and say, I have to court her. But my God, if I were a Republican senator, I would not be able to hear any of my own thoughts above the ticking time bomb that is RFK in charge of HHS. Are we just going to have no public health emergencies that require someone with knowledge, or at least someone who doesn't have a lifelong hatred of the exact companies that history shows we are extremely reliant upon to live? You wouldn't select a Secretary of Defense who is on record as loathing Lockheed Martin and Northrop Grumman. You wouldn't appoint a Treasury Secretary who has for decades been locked in a battle to the death with Citibank and Goldman Sachs. I mean, such people are out there. An extremely radical left-wing president could appoint such a person as Treasury Secretary, but it would be insane to do so. I'll be fair. You might appoint a Secretary of Education who hates Houghton Mifflin and Scholastic. Well, Clifford is a lovable red dog, and the stakes are a little lower there. We're talking about HHS. Millions could die. RFK running it is a bad, bad idea. I don't see what the Republicans see or aren't seeing. But have at it, guys. I'm sure all the senators who confirmed him are just hoping for the best, with fingers crossed and huge personal stockpiles of Cipro and maybe, I don't know, a faith in the antioxidant properties of blueberries to get him through the next pandemic.